the Tom Number Show live. Everyone give a cheer and a whoop for 107.
Hey, folks, how you doing?
We're doing really well, Juan. Thank you.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear. We hear you loud and clear.
Oh, super.
So, buddy, I just wanted to kick off the show and say thank you and give a tip to an acknowledgement to JFK. It's his birthday today. He would be 106 years old. 106 is red pilling. So I wanted to hand the time over to you, Juan. And are you okay with a couple of questions at the end? Is that, do you have time for that?
Sure.
Okay, great. And we all know Juan, and we're not going to just officially amongst ourselves, we're not going to ask who won. Juan is Juan, and we're going to leave it at that. All right. So everyone's in agreement with that. So yeah, I just wanted to open up and talk about JFK and hand the time over, Juan. So thanks for joining us.
I don't know if you kids can see that. Here's a little baby duck just coming out from behind mom. She's protecting him. Sitting here, and they show. I had to make room for mom and her little. There's another one. He just popped out. I don't know if you can see that. Pretty fun. And there's a third one. Pretty doggone cute. Life goes on. You know what's amazing is. I'm here. This is a very fun spot. And last night, just literally, I was sitting here. We had a pretty famous Brit here. We had Ringo Starr here. And so his band. So I had a beautiful seat for everything. It was pretty fun. Amazing how quickly they put things together. And I'll let the mama duck alone. I'll walk over somewhere else. Amazing how quickly they pull this whole thing apart, put it together, pull it apart, hit the road and go somewhere else. And a lot of fun. But we have other meetings here through the course of the day, and kind of fun. So quite a few ducks in there. That is one of the biggest calls I've ever seen. Oh gosh, he's a monster. So let me step over here where it's a little bit quieter. And has your conference gone pretty good? You guys enjoying yourself today?
Are we a big cheer? Are we enjoying ourselves, ladies and gents? We are. We've had some great speakers. We had Ian Welsh on, and we had Laura G and Serena. And I've been, as I always do, catching the numbers. You know. Whereabouts are you? And we know where you're on.
Well, you know.
Whereabouts are you right now? Can you say what state you're in, or what coast?
Well,
you're in.
I'm in San Diego, Humphreys by the Bay. It's a great spot. Here a few times over the years, and they have beautiful concerts here, and we have meetings here later on today that. It's a good spot to be able to enjoy them. And so anyway, anything in particular you guys are especially interested in? If you got questions, let's ask them right now.
Questions for 107, yeah, please.
Technology about to be released. Yes.
Did you hear that one?
No, go ahead and repeat it.
So we have a lady asking, she's interested in about the latest technologies that are to be released. Any updates on that in terms of, I guess we're talking about the
well, I just had somebody that mentioned this the other day, and they're talking about the flying cars that'll go from United States to Madrid in 15 minutes, Madrid, Spain, things like that. Look, there is capability that's out there, but not going to be released that quickly. I remember in the early 60s, of course, I watched every space launch. I remember watching the failures in the very, very late 50s, and then the successes in the early space race, being televised, find excuses to have a sore throat and stay home from school so you could watch the latest space launch. And we, in a normal trajectory, by the way, if there's what we call an osmotic curve, had the technology been allowed to come out at the normal rate, we'd be way ahead of where we are right now technologically. But and that sounds crazy because people say, no, we're going so fast right now, it's going crazy fast. But the reality is we've actually been held back and haven't been going at the rate that we otherwise would have gone in many, many, many areas. The hold back on the technology somewhat is because one group wants to move further ahead, what we would call the breakaway, and other groups want to suppress, or other groups working with the breakaway want to suppress the rest of us so that we're moving at a much slower pace. And there's almost a societal cooperation in that. Are there technologies that are really pretty advanced? Yeah, but they're also disruptive. So if you, in a normal situation, you want to let, say in a military situation, you want to let the next technology build on the last technology. So you take skill sets and you add to them, and you relatively slowly morph into the better technologies. If you come in and you have what we call a disruptive technology, where it just leaps way forward, you make existing technology obsolete, and you also make personnel who may have training in that prior technology unable to work without being completely retrained. And the period of time to replace all of the components and to retrain all the people can leave you in a lurch and unable to actually function in that gap from one to the other. So the introduction of disruptive technologies, it has to be very carefully done. So let's use fuel, for example, because that's where most people go all the time. Energy makes the world go round. We want to get off oil and gas. We want to go to, electric, all electric, or we want to go to some other technology that uses Tesla tech. These terms are just thrown out there, like these people even know what they're talking about precisely. It's fantasy land. And let me say it this way. So if we did just a simple advancement to go to hydrogen fuel, if we only chose to do it, say, with trucks, over-the-road trucks. Here in the United States, we have a beautiful interstate freeway system. Eisenhower saw the way the roads were in Germany with the Autobahns coming into and out of World War II and what it did for that region, and came back and the political will came into play to build this beautiful interstate highway system and to get rid of the early system that was prehistoric, things like Highway 99, Route 66, that went through every little town and slowed down, and made a high-speed highway system with roads that could handle heavy loads. And so if we only wanted to change over trucks, say to natural gas, which would be very easy, Slim Pickens, the oil baron here in America, pushed very hard for us to do that because we have lots of natural gas here. Just to switch trucks over to natural gas as opposed to diesel, and where you would start is on the highway system, on the interstate highway system. But the amount of money and the time just to convert all of the fuel stations from diesel to natural gas or to hydrogen, and then to convert all the over-the-road trucks from diesel to hydrogen or natural gas, which are lower polluting. It'd take you, you know, on the short side with a very industrialized operation, a decade or more, and it would involve huge expense. You'd leave about 15% or more. You'd use less of that fuel, and you'd reduce the load on the refinery system, etc. But it, you know, when you really got down and looked at the real gains, it was modest. So it's a very involved thing to switch over those energy systems. Are we going to do something even more disruptive by going to some other technology that, you know, by forcing it? Let's just say electric. Let's do all the trucks as electric, or flip it over and say we want to do 10 or 15% of the grid as electric cars. Under the current technology, like with Tesla, they want to build these power stations at remote areas of the United States that are within the highway system, and they want to have these electric turbine generators that run on, you know, natural gas, that are extremely efficient and provide power for whole communities, plus cars within the interstate highway system. Still very expensive. And by the way, America is a big country. It's not a little, you know, spot. You know, you go to Europe, over to mainland Europe, and the rail system is pretty pervasive, but you have huge, vast areas that, you know, are very lightly populated. Same thing here in the United States on steroids. We have huge, vast areas that are lightly populated. You're not going to get electric out there, rural electrification for electric vehicles or tractors or trucks or all the things that you do in those rural areas out there available readily. So now you've got kind of a inefficient system because it's very spotty. What's working is not relatively universal. You have to have mechanics that can do both the diesel and the gas and the electric, and it's a disruptive change. How long before we get to these other energy systems that people are talking about? Probably real number in a perfect world, some kind of a significant flip in these technologies is still, you know, on the short side, 20 years, and more realistically, 50 years to do it. Can we, by government mandate, force these changes and these releases out into being? It's possible, but this is where it really gets tricky. Now you're dealing with politicians. Let me use the example of gas here in, you know, for vehicles as an example. We have a huge political lobby that wants to have alcohol in the gasoline. So we have 15% alcohol, which comes from, in the United States, primarily corn. And so we're growing food that we're burning up. The food that we grow for alcohol to go into the fuel systems is extremely inefficient. It's stupid. Why do I say that? Because you're using diesel fuel to run all the tractors to go out and do this. You're even having to use the fuel to make the fertilizers to make the corn grow well enough. You're pulling the nutrients out of the ground. You're trucking that material to places where it can be refined down into the alcohol to add it to the fuel. Very energy intensive to get that done. And then when you do put the alcohol in the fuel, General Motors, 2 decades ago, you know, on a Chevrolet Impala, if you were using regular gas, unleaded gas, the Chevrolet Impala got like 20.5 or something miles a gallon, 21 miles a gallon, as I recall. And people can go out and fact check me and get the exact numbers. When you added alcohol to the fuel, 15%, and on the vehicles where the engine has to actually be, valves and components in the engine have to be hardened, because the normal fuel, unleaded fuel, has a little bit of lubrication to it that lubricates all these high impact parts in the valve train that push the piston or push the valves up down the fuel into the pistons. When you run alcohol, it doesn't have that cushioning effect in those high-speed parts. So you have to harden them. So a car that was set up to run on gasohol cost you, an extra several $1,000s. And corporations would get a tax incentive to buy gasohol-ready cars because it was a lobbyist thing with politicians. And after you were all done, that car, Chevrolet in its own figures for the Impala, says that it gets 21 miles the gallon when running regular unleaded, and it gets 19 miles the gallon when you run gasohol. In other words, it's like with scotch. I like scotch once in a while. If I take a bottle of scotch and I pour 10% of water into the scotch, do I have more scotch? I might have more volume, but all I've done is taken down the potency. The miles per gallon with the gasohol goes down equivalent to the amount of gasohol that or alcohol you put in there. It never, ever, ever will be as dense with energy, what we call BTUs, British thermal units. It won't have as much punch as the unleaded. You're just watering it down. It's not more efficient. It doesn't make less pollution. You have to use more of it to go the same distance. So politically, you had a bunch of lobbyists that were working for farmers and fertilizer companies that came in and conned everybody to, including for the car industry. It was a make work program to let car companies build a new engine component that costs more money to the consumer, and they make more money, and corporations get a tax break for running that material. It was a huge, huge con, and it didn't help air pollution at all, because you still had to use more of the same fuel with the same rest of the additives in it to go the same distance. It's a type of insanity that can only happen in a political environment. So if we bring in other technologies, the biggest problem and the biggest slowdown all along for some of these other technologies is the politics and the propaganda, and then convincing people the right way to go. Electric have a future if you have these smaller nuclear reactors that are not reactors that make use fuels that can be weaponized. Pebble bed reactors, the small portable nuclear reactors, which, by the way, President Trump authorized making for military installations. The Air Force has been testing that, and he put that in place. Before this is over, the alternative energy that will end up probably being put out the quickest and the fastest, and it'll start here in America in this next phase, will be small micro nukes. They'll be placed on military reservations, and the power allowed to go out into the grid on an emergency basis. And yes, then you'll have the electric power to do a whole bunch of stuff relatively inexpensively, and it will help a percentage of the vehicle industry that is weighted towards the electric. And again, even there, it's all politics. The tax breaks. Elon Musk would be never would have happened, except for the political pressure to mandate tax breaks corporately for him, and then for the consumers buying those vehicles to bring it to pass. And even in a fully deployed condition over the next 20 years of what they expect to do, it's still only a small percentage of the total vehicles on the road. And you still have to have the electricity to run them. You're going to run them on coal, you're going to run them on natural gas, or you're going to run them on nuclear. In much of the country, for all intents and purposes, they're nuclear powered because it's nuclear reactors. You want the big ones that, when they fail, cause all sorts of environmental issues, or the fuel has to be put away for hundreds of thousands of years, or do you want the micro nukes that use low grade radioactive fuel that is relatively simple to handle and can be reprocessed and used again with minimal risk to society, walkaway reactors that can't be weaponized, just crack them open, you just leave them sit for 200 years after you're done with them, after they've run their 100-year lifespan. So anyway, I sort of rambled a little bit, but these other technologies, there is stuff out there that can be brought online. It won't come on as fast as a lot of the people are talking at any level. Even, going from the mainland to Madrid, you can make a vehicle that might be capable of doing that. Is it doing things to the atmosphere? What types of propulsion are you going to do that don't have an effect on the upper atmosphere? It's not just that you're putting out gases, but some of these propulsion systems are disruptive to the way that the electrically, the way that the atmosphere works. And so if you have large numbers of vehicles transiting those areas, we don't know what the disruptive effect is on the electric charge in the atmosphere. We're going to cause storms and things like that. When we looked at the SST, when Boeing was looking at building these SSTs that were even bigger than what was built between France and England, 30, 40 years ago, they found that it did things in the upper atmosphere where it was going to travel that were fairly disruptive. If you had a large number, not just a handful, it would change the weather patterns measurably. And that was the reason for the stop on the SST program here in the US. So there's a lot of things, in other words, that go into these decisions, and people that think that they can happen quickly or should happen quickly are really probably not in the real world. And it's probably not advisable to move too quickly on some of these technologies because we don't fully understand the implications, including societally, not just on the science. And we want to move quickly but intelligently with the things that need to be done to change the world, make it a better place.
Thanks, Juan. So we've got a handful of questions. We want to get through them. So, Susie, do you have a question for Juan?
I do, very quickly. My name is Susie. Juan, I'd be very interested to know what your opinion is. When Trump returns as the president, as he should be, will he bring a Kennedy with him?
Did you hear that one?
Nope, I didn't.
Susie, come up.
Could you repeat it?
This is Susie.
Hi.
Come and grab it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I
You see it?
can.
Hi
It's
there.
a lot easier when I can see your lips moving too.
My question was, when President Trump returns to the White House, I hope in 2024, will he bring a Kennedy with him?
23, please, preach it, sister.
20
Go ahead.
23 would be even better, please. But will he bring a Kennedy with him?
Good question.
I don't know what Robert's, Band in the day was doing a remote Zoom out here to California, and had a bunch of Republicans in the room, and he suggested in the course of the conversation a Trump Kennedy ticket, and the room came unraveled, and people just were so excited. They thought it was a beautiful idea. Realistically, no, somebody wanted me to have Robert come over and say something right now. Realistically, the likelihood that you would have a dual party ticket like that just isn't politically going to happen. And I don't think it would, having, for example, Robert somewhere in the political machine that evolves in the near future would be fantastic. It would be very important. And the reason is because of his understanding of what has been going on here in the U.S. in the pharmaceutical industries and the threat that has poised to the world within that zone. Yeah. There he has incredible subject matter expertise. He has taken a stance that is outstanding. I mean, he's really led the way, especially within an environment where in his own party, there hasn't been an interest in what he's been saying. He's been swimming upstream on these mandates related to the vaccines and the foolishness of that. But there's other areas in the politics where it would be disruptive to things that have to happen from within the Trump administration to try to put him in, shoulder him up, shoulder to shoulder. If something happened to Trump and you switched to a Kennedy administration, they would be vastly different in a lot of the ways that what they would try to administer. And more importantly, the personnel would be constantly batting heads. Remember, presidency is not just that individual, it's the whole team that comes in with them. And it would be too disruptive. The whole idea of a vice president is that he needs to be able to step in and take on the responsibilities of the president if something happens, and to have a two-party team logistically is just it would be a very foolish move. But having Robert in some other capacity within the administration, absolutely, he would be valued, and he would be a huge plus. And I think he will be somewhere in this return of Trump, if you will.
I shall look forward to that. Thank you, Juan. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
All right.
So we've got one now. We've got we call them the Magna Carta sisters. So here in the UK, you'll know this. Runnymede on the River Thames near Windsor Castle is the Magna Carta, but there's also a JFK memorial, and it's his birthday. So here you go, guys. No, sit here. Here you go. So they've just got a question in regards to Magna Carta.
All right, girls. Yes. Gosh, you got a bunch of cute girls here today.
Jeez. Yes, I think there's a few ladies.
I bring to show, so you know.
Well, and by the way, we had a bunch of Americans came over there, spent a couple of years there or more, and they brought a bunch of the girls back with them when they got done. And a bunch of the guys there got upset because our guys were oversexed and overrated and everything else, but they did bring the girls back home with them. So a little competition there. And of course, we hail from that neighborhood ourselves for much of our population way back, as fought a little, had a few dust ups with the Crown, but we got plenty of Brits here that are heritage to Brits here that as Americans. So a lot of cute girls from Britain here. So go ahead.
We wouldn't mind an invite over there, but forget the sex.
I heard one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we teach people and teach them about the Magna Carta 1215, about the Article 61. But anyway, we're doing an event shortly on the 15th, celebrating the 808th anniversary of the sealing of the Magna Carta. But what we found very interesting when we went down to the Runnymede site is the fact that they've got a JFK memorial. And when you walk into the memorial on that site, it says you are now entering the United States of America. And of course, yeah, American soil. And of course, you walk up 50 steps, but walking back down, it's 51 steps. So, I mean, the question is, you know, is England the 51st state? And such an interest with JFK and the Magna Carta, which obviously the 1776 was written out of our constitution, especially our famous clause 39, which I don't know if it's the 14th Amendment, which is very similar to 39, clause 39 of the Magna Carta, no, all free. So anyway, the interest there is the JFK on the Magna Carta site, and like the relation there, which obviously after speaking to Tom when we went to a convention in Ireland, and him doing the numbers on the Magna Carta side, which everything just ties in unbelievably. So what's your thoughts on, you know, the JFK your memorial site?
Okay, let me let's see if I can remember everything I need to unpack here for you. A couple of things. 5 is the number of death to enemies in defense. Whenever you say 50, you drop to 0. And so there's a military aspect within the cults that are running much of the world. For God's people, for Christians, Jews, Muslims, from a faith side, 5 is the number of grace. And so God's grace, forgiveness of sin, etc. But you have to understand that from the cult side, most of the memorials, most of the things that you see are extremely embedded with numerical symbology. You mentioned 39. 39 is 3 times 13. It's the 13 bloodline families that claim that they have a heritage back to Christ, back to David, back to Muhammad, and therefore a bloodline right to rule the world. Those 13 families, it's a spell, it's magic. The maximum power or magnification of a spell is 3 times. So 3 times 13, 39. Here in America, the most occult branch of government operation in our government for the occult practices is surprisingly NASA. Why? Because it's all about the magic of illusion. And that's why, for example, when we went to the moon, we launched from launch pad 39A and 39B. Why not 39 and 40? Why not 38 and 39? Because it had to be 39 on the magic. And so they do an AB, and it's this bloodline royals magic thing with all of their symbology, all of the cool things that come from that symbology. Let me just mention also too, just to give an idea there in England of how critical the symbology is. Look at the number of yards, it wasn't meters at the time, that it is from Buckingham Palace to certain other locations. And you'll find that it's 666 yards, not meters, to various locations, because the meters didn't show up until Napoleon's era, to these various locations, and or multiples of it, and very precisely over and over and over and over. And you see the same thing in France. You see it to Jerusalem and Israel. You see it in Iraq. The societies behind the scenes put their hidden hand, their imprint of their presence and their effect on the operation of the world. So when you say 51 steps down, what's the 51 refer to? It's 3 times 17. What's the 17? It's the number of Osiris. It's the number of the phallic symbol, which is the Washington Monument. Osiris was killed on the 17th day of the first month. So killed and then resurrected, and through his son Horus with the whole Isis thing. The numbers are everywhere, and they have very precise meanings. As soon as we get into long sentence structures, I'm less confident on it, but they use it for communications here and there. It is primarily on the core word aspects. When there's certain additions, for example, in a base 6 system, A being 6, B being 12, C being 18. If you put certain things like computer in, you get 666. Well, that's not actually an accident. If you put certain people's names in, families have changed their names, the letters, so that they are very precisely add up to certain numbers. So, for example, Henry Kissinger turned 100 years old yesterday. JFK, 106 today. Kissinger, if you use the same base 6 system, his name adds up to 666. Many families over centuries have bought into the cult and then left the imprint in their family name for generations to come, to show that they're connected, that they're part of the cabal. It's like a secret in hiding right in plain sight type of a thing. If you're an initiate, if you've been read in on the hidden hand aspect, then you find out these meanings and you come to understand them and project them out into other operations in the world. The entire fight that we are in today across the globe is the secret societies that JFK warned about, that Eisenhower spoke about, this military, industrial, social media, news, Hollywood groups that using not just one group. It's not just the Atlantic Council. It's not the Club of Rome. It's not Skull and Bones. It's not the Masons. It's not the Royalists. It's all of them, not individually. It is a bad James Bond movie. It's Spectre with not just 8 arms like an octopus, but thousands of tentacles reaching out and grabbing everything in the world around us and manipulating us to comply, to do their bidding. With this recent situation, that didn't start yesterday. The corona issue was a weaponized something that was discovered all the way back in the mid-60s, and successively over and over programs were used to upgrade and improve the way, which was no accident. Why? Because these people want to put their thumbprint, their imprint, all through different stratas of society. They want to show you it in Hollywood with the movies. They want to show it to you at their award shows. They want to embed it in every facet of society to program you to believe whatever the latest lie is that they want to put out there. And if they don't get you, they get the 10 of your neighbors, so that you have to comply because nobody else is listening to you, because the rest of the people around you are caught up in the propaganda.
Well,
We're swimming in a sea of propaganda. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
People are not washing, it's not washing with people anymore, and certainly not in England, and obviously people we speak to around the globe. People are waking up and they're cottoning onto it, and you know, we're taking back the numbers. We're taking it back. We're not going to allow them to beat us, because there's too many of us that are awake now. There's some beautiful spiritual people in this room today. And we're so, you know, grateful that people are awake and are using their spiritual powers, and we're all coming together. And that's what it's about. They can go to hell and burn in it, as far as we're concerned, but we're taking back the numbers and we're taking back our countries.
Yeah. Let me just say something here for a second, because this is the reason that people like us get together and talk and compare notes.
Yeah.
You know,
use their shit against them, basically. We'll take their shit, we'll use it against them. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, remember, you know, here in America, we fought an entire war to Revolutionary War to break us free from a crowd that was controlling us from afar. War of 1812, even the banking wars that we're in right now today go to that group that has captured much of the world that's operating out of the city of London. And we are fighting back. It's going to involve a lot more than rhetoric. Before it's over, there is going to have to be actual tribunals. We are in a world war right now, and that world war, this latest round, they have gone too far many times before. This was too far this time with the virus, which killed massive quantities of people. The cure killed even more, and people need to, you know, go away. Some of them are going to need to be sent on their way to a higher court in the next world. But it won't happen easily, and it won't happen without far more education out through the population. The propaganda is strong, and even though our numbers are increasing, we have quite a ways to go. We don't have the numbers to fully pull this off yet. And so education's everything. Your conversations with your neighbors, your children, your coworkers, everything else is critical to making it possible to do the actual legal prosecution that's going to need to be done within a military environment before this is over.
Thanks, Juan. Magna Carta goes, that was brilliant. Thank you very much. We've got Jerry. Jerry has a question for you, Juan.
Yes.
All
Hi,
right.
Juan. I'm
Hi.
Jerry. Pleased to meet you. Part of you, your leg, hand.
My jacket.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I've seen a lot of your shoes. You've got some good footwear.
Yeah, I got my good jacket on here.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that before too. Oh yes. Okay, my
All right, go ahead.
slightly more, I don't know, dull perhaps. The money system. Oh, it's gone. Even his foot.
Are you still there, Juan?
Oh, sorry. What did I do? I hadn't even. They didn't. Oh.
He's still there, but maybe just lost reception. Hang on. What's your question?
It's about the money system.
Okay. Hang on. Let me just text him. Must have let him back in, I think. So we're recording.
No.
Oh, here we go. Here he is. He's back. So where's my? Oops, hang on. Okay. Here he comes. He's back in the room. He's back in the room. I just need to make this big again, though.
All right, there we go. All right.
Trying to. No, I'm just trying to make it
I'm
big.
here. I'm here. Are you there?
I'm here. Yeah.
All right, good. I apologize. I think that was my end, not your end.
There we
I'm
go.
sorry.
So Jerry's back on the Graham Norton chair.
All right.
Sorry,
That was my fault. That wasn't
It
your
wasn't.
fault. So I apologize.
I didn't think I touched anything. So this is a question about the money system. We know the banks appear to be in trouble, failing all over the place, and that the petrodollar or the fiat dollar looks like it's completely on the way out. Any new system, any potential gold-backed system, will there still be cash, in your opinion? I'm not happy about this Starlink thing, which seems to be connected somehow to any new system. What's your opinion on that, in the States in particular?
Well, you do have to differentiate between the States and literally the rest of the world.
Yeah,
The intention is to move the whole world to a digital system. It's very dangerous because the ability to control that from, just some armchair somewhere is pretty high. It's very dangerous for us to have that, because you can have bureaucrats make rules based on lobbyists and secret handshake groups that then cut off your access to your funds because you have violated some social standard that they've constructed, a legal construct. Going back to the Magna Carta girls, the whole point was you couldn't have edicts from a royal perspective that violated certain human God-given rights, that all God's creation, all people have certain rights that are due them, and they cannot be violated by the club that is running things. Today, we have a mechanism, a system that allows this same crowd of elitists, not just royalists, but the power behind the thrones, the money powers, to violate our individual rights as a club, to enslave us, to cut us off from the ability to support ourselves, to live, to own, to have a place on the planet. But they do it within the access to the means of trading with other humans, trading our labor by converting it to an intermediate material that is recognized for trade. So I don't have to trade bananas for car repair. I don't have to trade housekeeping for bread. Okay. We go to an intermediate thing, because I might not be able to find somebody that has bread that wants me to clean their house. I might not be able to find somebody that wants my bananas for construction work on my house or something else. So we go to an intermediate means of exchange that's recognized, gold and silver classically, but we've been managed into accepting receipts supposedly for gold and silver, and now just the receipt itself as though it's has value as an intermediate mode of exchange. And then these gatekeepers, these trolls, control whether you have the ability, the right to even do an exchange, make it illegal for you to do an exchange outside of going to their intermediate thing. See, that's what we did with oil. You want our protection from the American Navy, Air Force, the State Department, for the free flow of oil from someplace else in the world to someplace else. If you want our protection as you transit it, you got to do the transaction in dollars. And if you don't do it in dollars, then we won't protect you. And miraculously, magically, pirates show up and blow your ship up. So we became this troll crossing manager, and other countries kind of signed into the agreement. Now, people decided that the American military, State Department, political system is dysfunctional enough, unreliable enough that they're not willing to continue that mechanism. So they're switching to a basket of currencies. That's what Saddam was trying to do back when Gulf War I started. That's what others have tried to get done at several occasions, and then we've had to start wars over it. And then those people that wouldn't do the banking system, Gaddafi also, Gaddafi wanted to do a euro, or excuse me, an African dinar and back it with gold. That's why he had the 350 billion worth of gold that he had stored up within a Libyan sovereign wealth fund and other things. And that was stolen from him and from the Libyan people. And he envisioned an Africa where he could do for Africa what America did within the broader oil transactions, shippings, etc. For all that he was portrayed as a nut and a kook and everything else, he was actually had some good advisors. His financial advisors behind the scenes were pretty savvy. Gaddafi had actually met with members of the Rothschild family several times in the couple of years that led up to the Arab Spring and the Libyan conflict and all that, totally manufactured from outer space by these secret cabals. But he'd been negotiating to create this African dinar and to blend it into a broader financial system. And they've got enough information to know where the gold was and come in and take it, and that was it. So, very sad situation there. I think within the Libyan people, when the rest of the story is told out in the future, Gaddafi will not be nearly as maligned as he has been in the Western press up till now, and Saif absolutely will not be as maligned as he has been. But those that win the wars write the history. So we'll have to see how that ends up getting written. That story's far from over. Libya is in a horrible situation right now. So
thanks, Juan. And thanks, Jerry. So we've got Brian. He's got a question
Thank you.
for you, Juan.
well, and let me just finish one quick thought. So on the digital, I didn't really answer your question completely. Let me just say this: they're on a fast track to move America to a digital currency. Within the context of a Trump return, some aspects of that are going to happen, but there is a tweak to it that does go to a gold silver backing. If you look even with what BRICS is trying to do, they're going to claim some gold silver backing in there. There's a meeting in just a few days to continue to build that out. But the true backing or the availability to that material that's supposedly backing it is going to be pretty nebulous. And so if you can't actually ever exchange your digital quatlus or whatever you want to call them, seashells, sand, for actual material, then is it actually backed by it, or is it just backed in word only? And how good is the word of the people that are claiming it? We have all sorts of illusions going on as far as, say, the gold. We know that in much of the bullion reserves that are out in the world, it's been counterfeited with tungsten. So, which is very disturbing. Will we actually get real gold or silver backing, and what's going on? And would it really matter? It's just a medium of exchange. The true fact of the matter is you have some clubs in a very James Bond kind of an illusion trying to take over the world and con everybody into going along with their legal fabrications and illusions of wealth that have nothing to do with reality. And if they can succeed, they can own the world. That's the fight that's going on right now. A digital currency, if a paper fiat currency is dangerous because they can just run the printing presses, a digital fiat is 1 billion times more dangerous or more, because all you don't even need the paper, you don't need the printing people, you don't need the mechanics of the paper. You just need to get enough power in dots and tittles to go into a computer system to keep adding zeros. And then it really comes down to where they want to take the world. Your ability to trade one to another, whether it's an individual to another individual, or a state to a state, or a country to a country, anywhere on the planet, they're trying to make it illegal to do any kind of transaction with anyone else on the planet that they are not involved in and have approved of, which then means you can be choked, handcuffed from any kind of operation to sustain your life, to give your life value and meaning and exchangeability, your life energy with others, that they have not approved of. And they is this monster, this hidden hand, this unseen cabal that's trying to take ownership of the whole world, right down to every breath you take.
I'll be missing you by the police and stuff. Thanks, Mark. Thank you. I'm just going to say, everyone, if you can hear, it's just a number popped up that about President Trump and the gold and the silver. So in his numbers, 185, Donald John Trump, is the silver reset for the silver exchange. 138, Donald Trump, is the gold reset for the gold exchange. Anyway, I just put that out before. Right, Juan, we have Brian with us. He's got a question for you.
Hey, Juan.
Yeah.
How are
Good.
Good. Right, I would like to pick, if it's okay, your fascinating mind. So back on, I think it was the 15th of December last year, I believe President Trump released his first NFT collector.
You're right, it was, yeah.
Now, I was lucky. I managed to get a couple. And since then, certain other things have appeared, which appear to be some sort of digital token. Do you have any insights that you can share with us?
Well, again, there's going to be an aspect of the digital that will be used because there's a huge momentum in the world to make that happen. That's being pushed on all of us. There's certain places where you don't go head to head with the cabal and try to stop it. You go with it and try to control the direction that things are going. But it's a bit of trolling. You get people within any movement that have their own personal interests. So around President Trump, you have lots of people and they've got a particular direction going. They've got to do it. They want to do this certain thing. They have to. Might not have necessarily been what Trump was going to do or the people around him, but they've latched on and they're trying to pull it a certain direction. So they throw things in there that, they like to hijack an operation, move it a certain way. And even within a Trump operation, remember, it's just one man. It's not just Trump.
Yeah.
You have to keep that in mind. There's hundreds, even thousands of people that all have their little thing. And so if anything happens around him, to imply that means that he's totally good with it, he absolutely agrees with it, that's where he's going. That's not always the case. And even if there's some of it allowed intentionally, it doesn't mean that's fully where they're going to go. It means that there's a little bit of trolling. You keep your friends close, your enemies closer. I can tell you dozens of people that have been around President Trump, even in high contact positions, and yet they were never seen fully as allies, even if they thought they were. They were there to keep them close enough to keep an eye on them and see how they would function, so they could later be moved aside after all of the rest of that team had been identified. Look, there's a whole crowd within the American government systems that are moving to a digital currency. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Trump administration or a Biden administration or an Obama administration or a half dozen prior to that. They've been working systematically to move us in a particular direction, no matter who's in charge. Remember, we talked a moment ago about the pharmaceuticals and about the coronavirus and the history of that going back to the mid-60s. We've had several conservative presidents since the 60s that, if they understood precisely what was going on, would not have agreed to this weaponization of this material for an attack on all of humanity. But these players have been working either administration. That's what Eisenhower talked about, the military-industrial complex. What Kennedy talked about when he said there's a threat. There are people behind the scenes. It's so insidious, so pervasive, these secret societies. And it's anathema to the way, not just that Americans think, but to any civilized mind. Because these people seek to take over control of the entire world, to reverse 1,000 years of history where the people have pushed against centralized control by a handful of people, merely based on who their parentage was, their genetics. Not the best and the brightest, but the best sperm donors and egg donors. And that's not the way we're going to work out in the future, but it's a fight. And those secret handshake clubs continue. Those families are the same families. You think it's something different. No, they go all the way back to Samaria, Babylon, Egypt, Greece, Rome. Over and over. They just keep reinventing their names. They're the Phoenix. They keep the bloodlines pure, and they keep coming back over and over with new names, new faces. You think it's different people, like here in America. Bill Clinton, he's a Rockefeller. His dad was Winthrop Rockefeller. A huge, long storyline about him being sired by a military man that during the war who rolled his car over and drowned in it. No, father's Winthrop Rockefeller. They changed their names, they changed their histories, and people buy into it. We are being run, and you there in England are as much in the middle and thick of it as anybody on the planet, by secret clubs and societies managing us for their benefit and gain. And all across the world, and by the way, we've got it may be worse here in the United States than it is in England, because they're even more embedded, more hidden here than the other places, because people have this illusion of freedom, which is not true. We are being run by a very advanced type of embedded secret society bloodlines here in America, as much as anywhere in the world, maybe more so than anywhere else in the world. It's not. I kid about the fucking Brits. Well, excuse me. The reality is, it's that insider club behind the scenes that's doing all of it, and we have them here on sticks compared to much of the world. So we're right together. You folks in the room represent, in my mind, America is an idea. It's not a place. The idea of, your own personal freedom, your own right to trade, live, own property, free from, some type of taxation that can steal it back from you. Which, by the way, in America, part of the way the Constitution was written was so that you couldn't tax property, so that it just becomes a lease from some government entity. That property right was inviolable, and by degrees, it's been converted here in America. We have these same clubs that are fighting in all these places against us as humans across the whole world. It's the same families, the same players at the current moment on the numbers, because they like to embed everything with the numbers. The main fight is moving to the currency and the currency wars, and the move to collapse the systems of trade, denominating value, the stock markets, etc., with the ultimate goal that we become so needy, unable to operate, and with legal constructs barring us from interacting financially, doing trade, apart from their involvement and their approval and their control within these clubs. That's the main part of the fight. I don't know if I answered your question exactly. I hope I did there.
Thanks, Juan. Great question, Brian. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that pretty girl. Gosh, I gotta come over and I just got married here a little while ago, and I got an extra pretty girl for a wife. And but I can still enjoy. I love a smiling face, a beautiful countenance, and good company from all you folks. So go ahead.
So last question, Juan.
It's more fun when I can see your face too, and you're not out in the audience somewhere. Go ahead.
We've got the last question. We've got about 5 minutes. Last question, but this is Laura G. So she's new to the scene in terms of the truth of movement, quote unquote, but she's brilliant, as you could say. She's got a wonderful countenance. So she has a question for you that I think is very interesting.
All right.
Hi, so I'm curious how we can create and use portals.
Say that one more time. I'm not quite sure if I understood the question.
I'm curious to find out more about how we can create and use portals.
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 Portals. Okay, took me a second. I had to think about that. Okay. Yeah, it's the accent, Portals.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me. This is actually a more important question than I think. Let's say that I was testifying before Congress, or I was going to be on Fox News or something like that. If I start talking about portals, I'll lose 99% of the audience, and they won't have
Not my audience, right?
what I'm talking about. Okay.
You're not on Fox News, you're fine. You can tell us.
Yeah, well, the only reason I'm saying that is because outside of a certain audience, this is a question that you just can't really answer because there's no starting place. Most of the people don't hear it the way that you're asking it. So let me try to answer it correctly though. Within these clubs or societies that are running much of the Western world, they believe that there is an interaction to the spiritual side and the physical that can happen through a portal. So what do those portals look like? You know, people are looking for, you know, a special portal that on the right ley line at just the right spots. Well, there is, you know, you can look at the, for example, I mentioned the intersection between locations in England related to Buckingham Palace, for example, to the Parliament building and to other key locations. You have to look down to Avalon to the south, and you'll see huge connections on the numbers to locations like that on the ley lines. Glastonbury, Tor, huge portal connection based on the way that these secret societies view things. So is there truth to it that there is some type of access to the other side of reality, is some spiritual reality at those locations? They believe there is. Is it stronger than, say, what let's differentiate now what I as a Christian think I have access to in the spiritual anywhere I am? In other words, am I a portal, or is it a physical location where that connection to the spiritual side is stronger? Let me use another example, because this is not a simple answer, a simple question. I have to give you kind of a couple different directions. When King Charles became king here just the other day, officially, you have the stone of Scone on which any monarch is to be sworn in on. Well, the stone of Scone is supposedly the stone that Jacob in the Bible rested his head upon, and while he was sleeping with his head on this stone at this particular space, he saw angels ascending and descending on a ladder into heaven. So it was such an important observation, and has all sorts of spiritual meaning, that stone, they didn't just make an altar there, they took that stone and kept it. And then the future kings of Israel were sworn in, standing or seated over that stone. That stone was supposedly transported from Israel up into Scotland and England with some of the descendants of David. And then British monarchs have been sworn in, taken their oaths while seated over this stone. One of the best articles ever done by a fantastic Brit, Cal Donny. I've mentioned his name before. Kal, and then last name Donny, Dani, which is his pen name. He only did 6 articles that I'm aware of. Cal Donny's blogspot has it. One of them is the Stone of Scone. I would encourage every single person to read that article and spread it around. Some of the greatest work. So now I come back to the portal question. That there's a spiritual connection to the spiritual world implied by proximity to that stone. So whereas people look for ley lines and other things, In the case of that stone, it's a portable portal, would be the contention of having that stone have to go certain places and be places when some spiritual energy, spiritual power, a divine connection occurs to enthrone someone for rulership over people. That's from, say, a Jewish, Christian, or Muslim side. Let's now go to a different thing. Several years ago here in America, as we were coming up on the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton was scheduled to speak in the last weeks before the election inside of an archway, and archways are considered portals. This archway was from the city of Baal in Iraq. The city of Baal was this place at the base of Mount Hermon where it was alleged that 200 space traveler angels fell to Earth and then established a city at the base of Mount Hermon called the city of Baal. And in that city, people would actually bring their children and sacrifice them to get spiritual energy, to get good crops, to do all sorts of things. It was a horrendous thing. The people eventually destroyed that city and the giants, the gods that were there. And the only thing left was an archway entrance to the city. And it was considered a portal of the spiritual energy from the God that was there. When the war was going in Iraq, more recently, up in that northern region area adjacent to Syria, the ISIS blew that thing to smithereens because it was one of those many spiritual religious monuments. But before it was destroyed, the World Heritage Institute had gone there and made a very exact digital picture of that, mapped it so that it could be remade or reconstructed out of foam. Now, the reason this is important is because when they did that, I believe the intent always was to blow up the original after they'd made a very exacting, precise copy of it. They copied it, and now they could make many of them, dozens of them, exact replicas of that entrance and spread them around the world, travel around the world with them. And what did it do? It took the capability of operating as a portal in one place, one location that was highly inaccessible, and then in this transfer of the magic within their way of thinking within these cults, now be able to transport it to other places and have multiple of these portals that can be used to access the spiritual energy associated with that particular design, etc. And so when Hillary wanted to speak in that archway, Hillary, who is a witch, belongs to the Wing Coven in New York, and his honorary member there, been involved in the covens out in California and other places. She wanted to gate that spiritual energy in that archway just prior to the election to get additional assistance from demon spirits to win the election. She was barred from doing that. It did show up in other places, of course, in Europe, etc. But that was the point, the purpose of having that portal or gateway present, was so she could do the proper spells and invocation, ate those spirits into America through that portal, which would then be portable. So when we talk about energy and portals, I believe it is absolutely true. I believe there is spiritual energy. I do believe that there's stuff on the good side and the bad side, and that some things can be hijacked, like the Stone of Scone, which I think has been hijacked. Is this a good thing? The only thing I would say in addition is that every person operating under the authority of Christ, by the blood of Christ, themselves also becomes a portal access to God, because the relationship with God is restored, because the penalty of sin, which is separation from God, has been paid by Christ. So anyone who is saved and by the blood of Christ operating within that saved position is a portal to God, and will defeat every other physical portal construct of man that you can come up with.
Thanks, Juan. That was an amazing answer. And maybe I'll get, when you and me do a show next time, I'll get Laura to come on the show, and we'll go into the portal realm even more, because I think it's a fascinating and lengthy subject. Everyone, a big round of applause to Juan and Dallas.
I always enjoy visiting with folks. You guys are all in my prayers. You're at the pointy end of the stick over there. And I appreciate, Tom, the chance to get to visit with the folks. Love you all. Appreciate you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Juan. God bless you, buddy.